Hey, thank you for being here and listening. So I just want to drop in again to talk about some methods of manipulation. And again, instead of giving these puppies that keep yapping for my attention, the attention that they so dearly want, let's look at the methods that they are using or attempting to use. Let's see, we share the screen, share. And take that away. So methods, and I'm going to try and write a little bit better on this screen. It's not so easy. Methods of manipulation. Let's have a gander. So methods of manipulation. Let's see. We've got obfuscation. So obfuscation, where they dance around not giving an answer, or they give an answer that you think you've gotten the answer to the question that you've asked, but they have obscured it. There's the truth in the lie in there, or there's no truth at all. And you would walk away thinking, that wasn't what I asked. That wasn't the answer I sought. And we have mass media controls. So you will find that not only are they in charge of mass media as mainstream media, they are also in control of the oppositional message. So people who are in the movement will be very aware of this. There are actors within the movement that will encourage you to not watch the TVs, probably while they're still watching Corrie. Don't watch the TVs, don't let those spells, those headlines hit you, and then they'll sit and use most of their content to drill home those same headlines from those same newspapers into your subconsciousness, just to make sure the job's done. Jobs are good on both sides. We have a worldview poisoning, and so they will, on a mass scale, they will use mass media to poison the view of a people's, of a place, of a country, of a side of a war. And on a smaller scale, they'll have their actors and those who still reflect that kind of toxicity within them that are all too happy to have so-called secrets spilled on you, to poison the view of others that others have of you, that others hold of you, which means you're going to be far less listened to, and you become far less of a threat when there's been this drip slander and poisoning of the well. So they won't drink from the nourishment that you have to give in your knowledge and wisdom, because they've been poisoned against you. They won't have it be said that you are anything good. And even if you've only shown them goodness, that even worse still, that means you're working extra hard to hide something that is toxic. We then have primal fears. And so you'll find that on the side of the movement, with the various actors that are paid opposition, they are constantly pummeling fear, 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 fear. And on the government side of things, the governed, they're constantly pummeling fear, fear, fear of these invisible monsters everywhere that you must pay to be saved from, one way or the other, in effort, stress, emotions, blood, in money, in all things that would garner your consent and less of your strength. Divide and conquer. So you'll see that hugely on the political sphere. They're doing it from the get-go, from religion to politics, all the same blueprint. Divide, make up sides, and then you can very much conquer your domain, and you very much have already poisoned the other side. So to create that side alongside the poisoning, what does that spread? It spreads hate. And once again, that big F-bomb, fear. And so with that, you see this in the movement very much so. Anybody that challenges the pound signs of these paid actors, because they would be actually real organic opposition, they're very much put down by this divide and conquer. These Christians against witches, Christians who aren't even Christians against witches who aren't even witches, or who are witches, or who are Christians. Who cares, as long as they're not harming children or laughing about others doing so. This is where we say that the divide and conquer has been very successful in said movement, and it has all been driven by fear. Fear of what they do not understand, fear of a lack of inner standing of sacred truths, or even their own truths, because that is where fear has its main foundations. When people do not know thyself, they can have anybody tell them what they should stand for and who they should stand against. We have indoctrination, that word, and we have it on both sides. You've gone through the sways in this movement of being indoctrinated to hate those who have gone for the jab, to laugh at them, to judge them. And the indoctrination has been coming through big style on both sides with religious blueprint of feel guilt, feel fear, do judgment, big style in spades. Blueprints all over this realm. The indoctrination of false science to make the movement look silly, to make conspiracies look like conspiracy theories, the indoctrination of that mixed with true science, a little bit of truth sprinkled here and there. Otherwise it's not palatable to most people's spirits. They have to put truth in there, not because they like you, whether this is from the government side or the movement side, these paid actors. They're going to sprinkle some truth in there, not because they like you, but because they know that something that is just based on lies is not going to be palatable. It's not going to be digestible to the soul, to the spirit quite as easily. If they put a little bit of truth in there, it's like a bit of salt, on a really bland meal. It makes it more palatable, more easy to eat and enjoy and digest, or even fake enjoyment of it. So then we have controlled opposition. My nemesis, not really. Controlled opposition. That's an S, Jenny. Opposition. You'd think I'd know how to spell it by now. They've been on my doorstep enough. Controlled opposition. There is no movement that has happened without them very quickly and structurally putting in controlled opposition. Because with organic opposition not being controlled, then these systems wouldn't be standing as they are today. Again, the proof is in the pudding. So they know there's going to be opposition. In fact, they need it to be able to forcefully push their plans and agendas ahead in a more rapid way. But they don't want bricks flying everywhere. They don't want, stray bricks going through the right windows. No, they need to have a controlled opposition, in that they can't stop the prisoners from rioting because the energies are allowing them the capacity to feel that drive to do so, to be that opposition. They can't stop the many from being that oppositional force, but what they can do is channel and corral and shepherd that force in order to make sure it's far enough away from anything that would bring problems to the plans and agendas ahead for the few. And there are many people that are far more willing than they should be to stand in that place, to fake who they are and feel that accolade and power and joy and enjoy laughing at others' naivety and others' trust. And so this controlled opposition is a sick puppy for sure, and it is everywhere. Do not be fooled when you're sharing memes or anything else about the amount of money that they put into these events and this planning and that planning. Read on to the parts where they talk about putting this controlled opposition in place. And of course, they always have that sprinkle of ritual humiliation for those that follow that controlled opposition. Why? Because that is the kind of energy that these sick puppies love. And so you'll find they put people in place that do not reflect the very thing that they say they are. In fact, quite the opposite. But you know, it's a ritual humiliation that you would still follow them and not ask the same questions of them as you're hoping to ask politicians one day, somehow, some way, by sharing it on Facebook. Then we have the financial system. The financial system is a way of garnering consent. And that consent comes in both sides, on the movement and on the governed. It comes in, there is a financial system set up where if you are placed in places of prominency, and usually you'll find the very thing they say they're speaking on behalf of you about is the very thing that they would sell their grannies for, or they have no right to be doing so. You have people like Dolores Cahill speaking out about the dangers of vaccines when she spent most of her life working on the very technology that's been used over these last 2 years and making millions from it. And then you have people who, I don't know, seem to know a lot about weapons, but the only thing that we can track it back to is misaim at somebody. When trying to aim at somebody else, they manage to get somebody completely different and ruin their lives. Well, hopefully not ruin that. Hopefully that lady's very strong and living well, but living very differently for sure. So that is part of the consent of these financial systems. And the fact that you'll pay into them without digging is giving your consent to that financial system staying as the status quo. Few people are able to profiteer, and the many accept that profiteering because they're looking and paying money, whether that's the government or whether that's these controlled opposition actors. They're paying money into the savior outside of self, that SOS. And that savior is never going to come, because that savior wants you to just keep paying into it in the hope on the never never that they'll be there one day somehow, some way to fight your corner on your behalf. Not going to happen. Food and medicine. And so with this, we have very obvious, whoever's in control of the food and the medicine is in control of the outcome. Again, based on fear, based on a lack of knowledge, ancestral knowledge being lost over generation to generation to generation. People again paying money into things like taxes and whatnot in order to hopefully be one day replied to for their SOS out there for the need of food and medicine, the sustainability of many people's lives, or all people's lives with food, a lot of people with medicine. Then we have the illusion of time. Illusion of time. There is this illusion in the movement of time, like it's all right, we've already won, the battle is already done, time will tell, but that time is dragging on and on and on and on and on with these never-ending SOS plans that go nowhere. there is also the illusion of the end of time story, that old biblical chestnut, that script that these people keep following, and it keeps working, of this end of times. And so people think, I can endure in this state of SOS for a bit longer because this speaker says we're coming to the end, or it's the political end of times, in that these politicians are going to pay soon, on the never, soon, end of times. And then you have speakers speaking about it from the biblical context, doing all of the judgment thingy and making you feel supreme, because at the end of times you're going to be the chosen one. And when is this end of time? This cycle is just a cycle that they've played many, many times, and it always is on the precipice of some kind of advance, whether it's advance in machinery, technology, medicine, advance in knowledge. They'll put in these cycles to make sure they corral and channel any kind of opposing force to them being in control of whatever the next cycle is to bring. In this case, it's technology. So they are very much putting in full force the control mechanisms that only the few, and very, very few, and getting fewer, will have controls over these algorithmic gatekeeping gods that they are putting in place. And they're putting them in place with our consent, because again, there is this illusion of time, that tomorrow it'll come, tomorrow we'll take them down, tomorrow the system will end. And it's a never ending cycle, a repeating cycle, a repeating script of this time and this illusion of time, the illusion that we have lots more time to act, and also the illusion of time that their time is running out. And so on both ends of the scale, it is an illusion, and it is an illusion that stretches out and out for as long as people want to keep pulling that string. How long is that piece of string? Well, it's as long as you are gullible in many cases, and that is the sad fact. Now we see religion and binding. All of this is bound up in a religious blueprint, a belief system outside of self, a belief system of sacred alchemical and geometrical shapes and knowings and wisdoms that bend with creation itself, and individual life stories, and the fractals of them all implemented in different ways, so the possibilities being endless. They are all bound in beautiful leather binding in religion. And all of this is built off of the back of the blueprint of religion, the savior outside of self story, and the judgment of others, the feeling supreme over others, and this binding. And the belief system in these organized religious contexts are binding to all of this very clever and manipulative and elaborate spell work. But when broken down, it's simple and simplistic, and it works. And so all of these things can be reiterated and strengthened by the religious contexts that are put over them. And it makes it even worse for people like me to be taking these sacred truths that have been unfortunately bound and chained in leather binding, and using them for their expansiveness and their never-ending possibilities and applications on any given lifetime. They are very much the strengthening factor of all of these, the stories of guilt, fear, and judgment that are bound up and distorted. These sacred texts are distorted to mean those things: the fear, the guilt, the supremacy, and judgment of others, and even self. And this comes with this garners great consent for many, many, many abuses of and over humanity itself, and particularly our young who rely on us to see through this bullshit. And then we have, let's see, subversive symbolism. And so they will use symbolism, subversive symbolism. They will use symbolism and take sacred symbols and invert them in order to what? Burrow down like the cones of the spellwork of the words into your subconscious. Subconsciousness, let's say. Let's just say. And that burrows down like a ball into your subconscious. So you maybe are going to see them take sacred symbols and give them meanings that far dilute and far trample on the full and entire meanings of them, and then take other symbols and say they are of the light, quite literally, like the sun. And you'll find that actually, although it's nice and bright and yellow and red and whatnot, it would be black, as in the black sun. And so there's lots of subversive symbolism that burrows down into the subconscious, again, garnering consent for the religious context they're put under, which backs up all of these tactics of and methods of manipulation. Then we have the DHR factor. DHR factor. Now this one has been close to me for sure recently. And so you'll see denial. They will denial till the cows come home, even if it's their own voice telling on them. They will hassle, they will troll like never before. They might even have people come to your door asking you if you've been committing suicide lately. You know, people in uniforms, they will hassle, they will troll you in the echo chambers of the likes of these apps, Telegram, WhatsApp, whatever, Telegram being a real bad one in the UK, and ridicule. And so they will ridicule, sounds a bit like witch hunts. So they will deny knowledge of their evil deeds. They will deny even knowing the truth and being given the truth. Then they will hassle, troll, try and burrow down under your skin. And then ridicule. Again, going back to that poisoning of the chalice, poisoning of the collective around you, to separate you out, to try and break you into a place of SOS call. And then guess what? If you were to SOS call, or if you were to finalize yourself, they'd shed tears. They'd say, oh dear, we're so not sorry, because they're never sorry for anything, but they would, you know, they would shed a tear for you while they were never around to stop this SOS place in your life from happening, or you come into that place in your life. And so this denial, hassle, and ridicule is key. When you do not just neatly fit into these methods of manipulation, and when you do not lie flat on your back and think of England for all of these methods of manipulation, this is when you will get and feel with gusto the DHR factor. Denial, hassle, ridicule. Good job. There are plenty of us, the few of us, who are actually willing to stand in our own power, know thyself, self-reflect, not cast out hate, but observe from a place of love, but also wisdom. And do not take lightly the wisdom and love when applied together can be ruthless to spread the truth. So much love, much balance, much wholeness. Thank you for listening. I promise this is all going to come into a culmination of a trip along memory lane and my present as to how I have met and seen and witnessed people being given these methods of manipulation and witnessed the effectiveness of them. So there is a lot of kudos to be given to those dark lords that want to control others, basically. Why? Ultimately, because they're afraid of themselves. Nobody wants to control anything or anybody when they are knowing of themselves, sovereign in themselves, because there's no need, there's no threat, there is no wanting of their position or of their perceived power or their perception of the public. There's just no wanting of it, because when you know yourself, when you are really truly sovereign, when you really true are a spiritual warrior, you aren't afraid to stand alone. And it just so happens that when you're like that, you'll attract in few, but those few that you attract in are strong and are not afraid of anything that can be thrown, because they know themselves. So there's not much can shake that perception and knowing of self. Whereas those who are doing the mudslinging are terrified. Those who want to control others and be in a very controlling state of the outcomes and very much bought into that outcome being the only outcome acceptable to them, they are the ones that are actually living in terror and in fear, because they are so afraid of knowing themselves. They work hard to get to know you better instead of themselves. It's all projection, it's all distraction, it's all illusion. So enjoy the ride. Much love, much balance, and much wholeness. Mwah.